Alright, YouTube, so we are actually going to be taking a pause on the electrical portion of things. We're kind of chasing our tail a little bit, just due to the fact that we don't have everything that we need to complete it and to finish it. I think it's just somewhat confusing us a little bit. So I think for the most part, we know what we need to do, but we also need to have everything here to kind of be able to run everything and figure out exactly where everything goes. So this like bump buttons and stuff like that, it just trans brake, a couple other things, some electrical, some relays, stuff like that we don't have right here right now. So we just feel that it'd be better just to pause for now and wait till we get everything that we need in before we complete it. But we've gotten really far with it. So this week, this episode, we are just going to start doing some of our plumbing. So we got some goodies in here from Aeromotive. There's some different fittings. We already have the regulator, but we have opened some of the boxes and put some of the fittings on there already. Got this monster filter that we got to mount. And I think for the most part, we've got just about all the fittings that we need. There are a couple that are going to go into the back rails here that we don't have yet. And then we're actually going to have to, I'm waiting on a couple of the ends to run stainless from one to the other. So this will be kind of on pause too, but I think for the most part, if every fitting works out and the angles that we have work out, then we can actually go ahead and start putting all this on and kind of running it somewhere around here. I've got the line. Here's our hose that we're going to be running. So we can start on a lot of this, and hopefully whatever we have left over, we can start using some of that stuff for the oil system as well. Other than that, for the fuel system, I think we can virtually get everything kind of ran or at least mocked up for the most part, besides the back of the fuel rails and the primer pump. So with that, we're going to go ahead and kind of start fitting stuff up and seeing how we like it. So this is PTFE hose, and I'm putting the fittings on the end. And what we're doing is, well, first you put the little, first thing you want to do is put the end on it, slide that in, and then we got these little ferrules, and it actually slides in between the hose, the braided line, and then we've got the black coating on the outside, which does make it a little bit tougher, but it looks good. So then you're going to take this little ferrule, and it actually is going to go on the outside of the rubber there, but on the inside of the braided line. So it does make things kind of tough. You just got to be careful without poking yourself with that braided line, but we're just trying to work the rubber portion away from the braided so we can smash this ferrule in between the two. So that's kind of how you do it. You can see there, that's where it's gonna go. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but it just takes some work. You just gotta work it, and it'll end up going on there. And then once you tighten it on, it's not easy to tighten on either. But we've also got these clamps that we're putting in the vise to tighten everything on, and then these wrenches here so we don't scratch any of the fittings up and they stay looking nice. So that's how kind of doing the process. Time consuming, but it all looks good when it's all said and done. There it is. So we folded over these ends a little bit, makes it a little bit easier, and then really all you gotta do is just kind of push them back. So that helps out a lot, to be able to divert it from getting on the rubber and the braided line. And then once you do that, then you just take this in. You should be able to hopefully show it on there all the way like that. And then you just start, hopefully, get it over everything here. I wonder, yeah, that's all I can do, isn't it? It usually goes to right there in the thread.
Visit linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS. Sponsored by Abbey and Ironwood Pharmaceuticals.
Your vehicle deserves a world-class service experience. Your vehicle.
Figure it out, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
You're just about there. That's it.
So we are currently kind of somewhat taking a break on all the fuel system stuff, just due to the fact that I have two fittings that we're hoping make it in today. But coming out of the top here, out of the top of the fuel pump, we're running a 180. And it's going to come over, and then it's going to hit into the filter here, go underneath the radiator, which sits right about here. And then from the bottom of the regulator right here, it's going to come down underneath the radiator as well, and it's going to come straight up, and then there's a 180 to the top of the fuel cell right here. So those two 180s we're waiting on, so we're stopped on the fuel system right now. Primer pump, which is going to be mounted right here in front of the filter, and I ordered some brackets with dual mounts for that. So it's just one mount with two holes in it for the filter and the primer pump, and we're going to mount them right there. So now, you know what, let me just grab here's the primer pump here, and this is kind of crooked in here right now. It's just zip tied in, but it's going to mount right about here, and it's one bracket with two holes in it for both. So that's going to run all the way around. We can run this line, I do believe, for this, but we're just taking a break on that for now, and we're working on the breather tubes that go in the valve covers here. So that's what you saw I was drilling that hole for. Where did that breather tube go? Here it is. So you saw in one of our previous videos us building the puke tank. So all this is, the breather tubes will mount here, and then it'll run, that hose will run down into the top frame rail, which is here. So that tube there, that top frame rail, there'll be a hose that'll go all the way down to that guy right there. So that's what we're working on right now. So it's still in the plumbing realm, but a little bit different from the fuel system here. Temporary hose, this is not the real deal. Not going with blue. That'd be cut way shorter too. Probably right in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Alright, so we're putting these 16 8N lines on from the oil tank to the pump, and we weren't able to run these type of PTFE lines and fittings. We actually had to go to some race right. From a 16 AN perspective, it's a little bit tougher to find 16 AN and all the varieties of different types of hose. So it's a little bit different. It's still got the braided line on the inside, but these are crimp-on fittings, so this little end here will actually get crimped on, so you slide that on, and then as easy as it sounds, this slides up into the hose, and it's not easy, let me tell you that. It's some work, but then you get it up in there, and there's some threads right here, and that little crimp end will screw on to there, and then once it's all said and done, this will get crimped right here. So these are 16 AN lines. You can see the comparison to the 12, quite a bit different there. Yeah, they can. And this one's going.
And
really
hustle?
good.
My God, they were doing. You know, a few years ago we went. a big problem with it.
All right, so the Peterson primer pump finally came in. I actually started to pump a little of this. We got it coming from the oil tank, coming through the frame there, and wrapping around, tying in with, I believe that's 10A in. And then from here, we had a 180 at back, and we're going to be running this one, obviously, to the pump. And then this guy, I'm hoping I can get it to tail in here through the motor plate and head straight on back to the filter location. So there's a little 12A in fitting on the bottom of that guy that'll go. So with that, oh yeah, and I also got the oil tank lined to the oil pump crimped. I got the ends crimped. We got those two lines to run, and then we got one more from the turbo. It's not in here any longer. Took that out right here. We got a couple other things that we got done. Is the water pump. So I know it's not the prettiest with the water pump, but man, I'm gonna tell you what, like with getting all these in here, these two lines with the tubing that comes through here, there's just not much room. So you can see those are halfway crimped. Like, they're not halfway crimped. I mean, there's absolutely no way that those are gonna fully shut unless they shift or something, which even if they did, this radiator is not necessary. It's just an additional. I know I made that note already, but it's just an additional, just because I started to do it, and we've just ran with it ever since. So we got those lines on there. We got one more coming from the water neck that we got to get up to here, but that's probably going to be like the final one. Either way, we're really far along, and I think potentially we could get everything ran for the most part here hopefully today. Oh yeah, and that's another thing. Aluminum or stainless tubing that's going to come out of the bottom of the fuel cell into the bottom of the fuel pump. So the one thing with that is I got to get a special fitting made for this tank because it is the plastic, it's not aluminum. So you got to get like, I got to get like a bulkhead fitting made with this type of fuel pump. That's kind of what it needs. You can see I already got a boot for it. It's kind of hard to see. It's just slid on the bottom of the fuel pump right now at 90s right there and goes back. So we'll cut that down, and then I'm gonna run aluminum or stainless, and then we'll clamp it on both sides, the fuel cell and then the fuel pump, and that's how we'll run that. And then that should be pretty well it for the most part from a plumbing perspective. So just kind of really just cutting a few more lines, running them, get them to fit, and tie it all back in. Oops, I forgot another one. The fuel rails. So I got to make I got my fittings here for that, but I just got to get my stainless to wrap from one to the other on both sides. So we'll have to get that bent and made. We'll have to put a flange on the end of that stainless, but either way, that shouldn't take too much once I get the material for that. But like I said, other than that, I mean, that's virtually a lot of it. We've had to change some stuff around, but we're making it all work. We're making it all fit, and for the most part, I think it looks pretty good. So most importantly, it's functional, and then secondly, it looks good. So let's get to work again.
a family film. True story. And every
No, I'm pretty sure there's water.
Maybe that's not better. The point is.
Oh, what?
Pieces on the floor. Lucy. We live till we die. Yeah. Right?
I'm sticking my neck out. Bring it with you. Oh, Jesus Christ. Wait, whoever they are, we track them down and bring them to justice. It was me. The asshole got away. I killed every last one of them, except me. Couldn't kill me. We were gonna start a family. We were gonna be a family. Wait, Vanessa is gone. She's not coming back. This may not be family you have. It's family to me. You have a good heart. It belongs here, where it can grow.
So we're wrapping up the plumbing portion of everything, and what you notice in this video is from the plumbing and electrical perspective, and I'm going to re-note this on one of our electric videos too if I haven't already, depending on what video we roll out first, but you'll see a lot of the phases of the car changing as we progress through the plumbing portion of things and as we progress through the electrical portion of things, just because that's just kind of the sequence that we've done. Not saying it's right or wrong, but we've jumped on the plumbing bandwagon, we've jumped on the electrical bandwagon, we've jumped off. So really all we have from a plumbing perspective is we're waiting for one more fitting for the oil lines that run from the pump to both turbos. So we're waiting on that, and we've noted this in the video, but the top frame rails, we've got to run together. We've got to do the fuel cell to the fuel pump, fuel cell to the fuel pump, and the radiator to the neck on the intake. We've got, the way we're going to have to do this is we're not going to run a rubber hose all the way through, because it's just, we don't have a hose that's made for it, first off, and secondly, it's just too tough with the setup that this is. So what we're going to do is we're going to do it very similar to headers. We got some aluminum tubing, 1.5 inch stuff, and we're going to piece it together kind of like we did on the headers here, make it work, go around this intake tubing here, and we're going to feed it in there. And then on the other one, the fuel cell, it's already done and bent the way we need it. So here's this piece. It just needs to be cut down a little bit shorter, and then we're going to rubber hose it into, we're waiting on a bulkhead fitting that ties actually manufacturing that we got to drill into the fuel cell here. Oh, and that's one other thing we got to do is the primer pump. That feed right here, this little line right there, that fitting is going to run to the bottom of the cell here, so we got to put another bulkhead in right here. But other than that, that's all we got. So cutting this down, we're going to start on the radiator stuff now, And that should sum up everything on the plumbing. Hold on to this too.
I got this one here.
Should cut it through easy.
Issue and go put them together. You think we can put that in a vise and straighten it? Probably really good.
I need another, so it's probably gonna have to be cut at an angle. 3-piece it.
Like we get about a quarter off each short one. Okay.
I'm probably gonna have to bring another one here.
With surprisingly great rates, State Farm has saved us money with our car and home.
Right there.
Hey, you're up above, there's a nut on that.
Alright, so here we are. I don't necessarily know how I'm going to fit this in the video because honestly, like I said earlier, you know, this has kind of been a drawn out process with the plumbing portion. We've been on and off of it. But I can't recall if I said I was going to get this done and show it in the video or not. But this is I finally found some 3/4 inch stainless that is got an 1.5 inch radius, 180 bend, U-bend, whatever you want to call it. So from center to center is 2.5 inches, which is exactly what I need to tie those two fuel rails into each other. So what I've done, I've ordered 2 of them. I've cut them to length already. I'm kind of sanding them up a little bit. I may polish them later, may not, we'll see. But now I got to flare it. So this is a fun process because I'm flaring it by hand. So it's not easy, but it's getting the job done. I already got one done, and I will show that once I get this one done. I'll show them both together on the car. So let's get to flaring. seeing as these rails sit further back than those rails, I figured it'd look better if I just made them the same length. So it's sitting back off the intake, pretty close to about the same. I know from this angle it doesn't look like it, but that's because it's sitting at this angle and that one's sitting at that angle. But it should be pretty well spot on. It may be just a little bit off due to the flare difference, but I think that's the route that I wanted to take on it, and I think that's probably the best route, and pretty pleased with the way it turned out. So alright, so that's officially a wrap for the plumbing video, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through everything that we did, because there's a lot of things that we left out with the plumbing portion. So I kind of just want to run through everything, share with y'all everything that we did. And in one of the previous videos, I also noted that we would roll out a quick video in relation to the smaller plumbing items. But I'm just going to go ahead and throw that in this video. So it is going to make it a little bit longer, but I'm just going to put it all into one. Reason being is because another thing that you're going to notice in this portion here is that we're turning fluids to this car. So you know what that means. We're getting closer to starting this thing. So with that, if I add this part in there, it'll get us closer to sharing that video. And another thing you're going to notice, it's pretty dang cold. So this part of the video has been filmed way after the stuff that you just watched. So without further ado, I'm going to try to sum this up as quickly as possible. Probably going to be some things I miss, but I just want to kind of run through everything the best that I can to give everybody kind of that look of where everything runs, what everything does, so on and so forth. So let's get to it here. I'm going to start, you know what, I'm going to start from underneath and try to go through everything that I can. So here is that line that we put in. That's what that is the main source for fuel here, coming out of the back part of the cell, and it runs at the bottom of the main fuel pump up there. And we also have a primer pump on this thing, so prior to starting it, we'll prime it. Here's the little primer pump here, you can see that, and then it comes off over here and comes up to a T, and this T comes from the top of the main fuel pump. So when we're done priming it and we start it, this pump's going to take over, and it runs down to the filter. So not only the stuff that the primer pump is pumping through the motor or to the injectors, all that good stuff, it will all be filtered. So then it goes into this from the T or from the main pump into the filter, which is right on the other side of the primer pump here. It's right back there. It comes out this side over here on the passenger side and comes to a Y block, and then from this Y block it goes up top to the fuel rails. So once I get out from underneath here, I'll go through all that up top, but while I'm down here, we'll go through some of the oil systems. So you can see here, this is my oil pump. We got 3 scavenges down here, one of which comes out and it Ys, and that is the return from both turbos, both sides. And then the other scavenges come down here to the sump. You can see them both there. We relocated the filter, and I put this Peterson primer pump on it. I think you can see that there. So we put a block off up here. You can see there's the block off. And then that comes from that Peterson pump filters right here. And when I get out, once again, I'll kind of share with you where all that runs as well. But while I'm down here, a couple other things. So these are some of the smaller lines that I talked about. This is the oil feed to the turbos, and then we also got the boost is coming from both wastegates to the boost controller here. So there's 2 Y blocks. I don't know if you can see them or not, but they're right back here all tied up, and try to be pretty as possible with them. But those Y and go to both turbos, and then the boost controller and the wastegates there. So let's pop out, and while I'm talking about those Ys, here's the wastegates here. So you got one on this side, one on that side. So wastegates, one goes to the compressor, on the turbo right here. Comes around, goes the wastegate, and then the other one goes down to the boost controller, which is right there. I don't know if we can see it very well. So that goes inside and goes to that Y block, and then they tee off and go to both wastegates. And then on this side, we got all three here that you can see. So once again, boost controller, one of which goes to the boost controller, one goes to the compressor right here on the turbo. I think you can see that. And then the other one, this one actually is gate pressure, which I was not able to show very well. I don't know if you can see that down there, that block with all the sensors on it. I'll actually slide back in here. So there are all the sensors. The back one's gate pressure, which comes from that wastegate over here on the driver's side. The other one is oil pressure. And then we got brake pressure and fuel pressure. So the fuel pressure runs to the regulator. The oil pressure runs to the Peterson pump, which I'll show you here in a second. And then the brake pressure goes to my line lock right here. So pop back out to that Peterson pump. You can see it here. So this is the primer pump. You just hook a drill to it, run it, and it primes the motor. And then that's where that sensor goes. You can see it right here on the top. And then we've got the pump pulling from the oil tank, which is right here. And then it goes back to the main oil pump back there. You can see up top, you can see the front of it here, the belt there on it. So that goes to the Peterson pump back here. You see it right there by that probe down in here. And then goes back to the back where that where the filter used to exist, where the filter used to be mounted. So here's the oil tank up front here. See the overflow tank here. We got all that plumbed in, and then this goes to the oil pump as well right here on top. So we got that. Let's see what else we got up here on the fuel cell. This is the feed, or where that little primer pump is pulling from right here to prime the motor prior to start. You can see there that is the filter right there in front. And then here's the return line to the fuel cell. And then once again down there, that's where it's pulling the fuel to the main pump. So just to get you a better look here, that's the pump up front. And then here is the regulator. So you can see this is that Y block that I talked about that comes out of the filter. It's right there on the back side of that frame rail, and it goes to both fuel rails up top. So it goes into the bottom fuel rail and then comes back around and goes down into the regulator. And then from the bottom of the regulator, it returns back into the fuel cell right up top. So you can see that up there. And then here's the sensor for fuel pressure right in front of the regulator. And then this is goes to the intake manifold up top, and then also both boost controllers go to the bottom of that intake there. See on that side. We also got my custom made radiator. Plumbing there goes into a little spout there on top, intake, and then the blocks that go to the block. So here's the water pump, and both of them come over. I'm going to do some adjustment with that here after we start the car. I don't like this angle that we have here, so I'm actually going to get rid of the block on top of the fuel pump there, and it's going to lower this line, so it's going to allow me to make this a little bit straighter and get rid of that bend up top. Here are my breather tubes, or my blow-by tubes up top. So we did that out of PVC there, that flexible PVC, and this is one of the returns from one of the turbos. There, it goes all the way around. The other return over here, you see there, and it goes to that Y block and goes to the scavenge on the oil pump. And then you can see all the injectors in there, all 16 of them, both sides. Little overflow catch can for the radiator. It's all plumbed in. And I think there's only one other thing, and that is going to be my line. I'm trying not to give too much up here because there's another video we're going to be putting together on this too. But here's my CO tank. I might put a bigger one in it. I might put 2.5 pound, but this one's a little bit smaller than that, but it'll work for now, especially for what I'm using it for. But it comes down and it'll go in through the firewall into that boost controller, and then from that boost controller it tees off and goes to both the wastegates. It'll come out and it also goes over to the shifter, which I'm not going to show. So that's all controlled there. And what else do I have? A couple things that were plumbed in to some sensors here. You can see all 3 sensors there. One's for the converter, couple dumps, stuff like that, trans brake, stuff along those lines. So that's what I got, and I believe for the most part that's everything, I think. So I know I ran through that really quick, and it may not have seemed like a lot, but when you get to using those PTFE lines and things like that, it's time consuming. It's a lot of work. So but I think we got everything in there, and I think we ran it pretty good, and it looks pretty clean, pretty low key, and that's what we were going for. So either way, let us know what you think. If you're doing something similar and you got questions where something runs, because I know that we had a lot of questions as we were going through this process. So we would be more than happy to help, because sometimes it get kind of confusing what goes where, and I know every system is a little bit different and setup's a little bit different, but either way, if there's something that you have questions with, we'll do the best that we can to help. And I know places like Aeromotive and Moroso and all those manufacturers and companies out there are more than willing to help and have been great help to us. So we've greatly appreciated it, and I'm sure if you want a more professional answer, you can reach out to them as well. But either way, we hope you all enjoyed it. We hope this helps somebody down the road. And like I said, if you have any questions, let us know. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, that like button, and don't forget, we hope that you can help us out by sharing the video and sharing the channel. We greatly appreciate it, and we love having you. So until next time, God bless.